Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started this morning. I would like to say good morning to everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Dana Sanders and I'm president of the Pike County Chamber of Commerce. Part of what the Chamber does is to help plan, promote, and support business here in Pike County. We're happy to have everyone here to join us for this legislative preview session and to learn about some of the initiatives that the Business Council of Alabama has been advocating for and what to expect this upcoming session. I would like to thank Representative Wes Allen and David Cole, BCA Senior Vice President of Governmental Affairs, for joining us this morning. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Chase Cobb, our new president of Pike County Economic Development Corporation.
Thanks, Dana. I accidentally muted myself there for a second. Good morning, everybody. I'm really happy to be here this morning. We have really good attendance and participation. Before I pass over the mic, just wanted to kind of mention a couple things. First of all, really excited about partnering with the Chamber and BCA on this event. Even more grateful that Representative Allen and David Cole with BCA could join us this morning. All of you know that the session starts on February 2nd, but in reality, and I think those two gentlemen will attest to it, the session really started months ago. They waved that checkered flag on the 2nd, but they've been hard at work through the fall, and I know January getting ready for the session. So we certainly want to thank them for being here. I want to mention a couple of things before we pass it over to Representative Allen. Part of what we want to do is help our funding partners and chamber members get involved in the legislative session. So hopefully we can do another event similar to this sometime in the middle of the session and kind of update you on where we are. But some of the other things I want to make sure that you're aware of is that if you have any questions about legislation or anything happening during the session, please contact me. I'd be happy to assist you in bill tracking or provide any information we can with what we know that's going on in Montgomery. It is vitally important that you're involved in the legislative session, whether it's just knowing what's happening or if you have some kind of interest. We need to support our local legislative delegation and our partners in the industry. They work awfully hard up there to protect your interests and all of our interests. And we want to make sure that we give them the support that they deserve and they need. So again, if you have any questions or you have a follow-up to this meeting, you can email me at ccobb@pikecountyedc.net or on my cell, it's 334-268-1835. Okay, with all those housekeeping matters out of the way, Representative Allen, I thank you for joining us. And what do you know, sir?
Well, the wind was cold this morning. That's what I know. And winter's still got a grip on us. But thank y'all so much for hosting this Zoom call. I wish the circumstances were different, where we could have a legislative breakfast or a luncheon to where we could all get together and be gathered. And that's one thing I missed most about our current COVID circumstances, is being able to see everybody in person and to just fellowship with each other. That's one of the things that I miss about this, because I like to move around and see all my constituents as much as I can. But thank y'all for putting this together. I appreciate your leadership there. It's good to have you on board with our economic development, Chase. I appreciate you and excited for your tenure, and thank Dana and all of her efforts for what she does with the chamber. Small business is the backbone of our economy. I appreciate all of her efforts. We've really got some dynamic leadership in our county as it pertains to economic development in the chamber, and our elected officials too, as far as at the local level. And I've had several conversations and questions about, since November the 3rd, from individuals about what are we going to do, and what do we need to do. And one of the things Chase touched on was and Dana I think said it as well, was to remain engaged with the legislative process, because it affects each and every person, not only on this call but throughout our daily lives. So stay engaged, but also at the same time elect strong conservative leaders at the local level. That goes for mayors and city councils and county commissions, and school boards and all of the appointing authority that they have, putting strong conservatives on the unelected boards that have influence throughout our communities. I think that's really important. And we've got great leadership at the local level here in Pike County. I just can't commend Mayor Reeves and his council and the county commission and what they're doing in the city of Brundage, and Mayor Boyd and her council as well. So a lot of good things going on out there, and Pike County is growing, and lots of good economic development projects going on right now. So thank y'all. Give you a little bit of an update about where we're headed. February 2nd is right here upon us, and just a couple of days we'll be getting underway under a very different circumstances than what we found ourselves last year getting started. With the COVID protocols in place, we're going to start the session next Tuesday, and it's going to look a lot different. A lot of unfinished business from what we had last year. There were a lot of bills that didn't get attended to when we broke for spring break the middle of March. We knew this COVID was a problem, but we didn't understand, I think, totally that it would shut down everything and what it's done. And it's so we'll go back in, and there's going to be a lot of issues on the table that we're going to have to deal with early on. And I see David Cole with BCA. He certainly knows those issues as well about what we'll have to deal with, and he'll be an integral part of that as well. But just a couple to kind of start with is COVID-19 legislation to protect business and small business from liability protections. We've got to do that. The ones that have really done all they could do to protect their customers and so forth, and we've really got to protect them. I think we'll be dealing with that early on. Also, the tax liability issues as far as the Federal CARES Act money that some individuals and the businesses received last year, and also the other round that came open in 21. Got to make sure that our residents and constituents don't pay taxes on that as well. So we'll be dealing with that. The economic development package. I haven't seen the legislation. Representative Poole out of Tuscaloosa will be bringing that, I think, is what I heard. But I have not seen that in draft form yet. So we'll be dealing with the economic development package to allure jobs, workforce development. And that's really one thing that we're seeing a lot of is we've got to have trained workforce. We're dealing with that here in Pike County, trying to address those issues as well, because we've got to have the trained workforce out there for the companies that are coming into Alabama, not only Pike County, to have a workforce ready to go. So state budgets are trending good under the circumstances from COVID-19. Years ago, back in 2011, they put in the Rolling Reserve Act to protect the ETF, which is our education trust fund budget. And just to kind of give you an overview, in Alabama, we've got two budgets. We've got the education trust fund, and we've also got the general fund. The ETF handles everything from K-12 through community college, through higher ed, and everything else. And the general fund is state agencies as far as ALEA, mental health, corrections and prisons, Medicaid, and so forth. So, but the budgets are really doing well. The Rolling Reserve Act really keeps us from getting out in front of our skis too much and appropriating too much money. When we really go on the past 15 years of where we're at, and make sure that we have good, solid, conservative budgets, and it puts money back in reserve so that in case the economy does go into a downturn, that we've got a reserve there to make sure we do not have to go into proration, because nobody wants that. We've not been in proration for the last 10 years. Prior to that, I want to say from 2000 to 2009, I think they had 6 years of proration is what I heard last week. What the Republicans have really, the majority have been able to do in 10 years to shore up our budgets has been really good. And we also put a Rolling Reserve Act for the general fund in last year. So we're starting to put some money away for those days that are for the economy and not doing really well. So we've got that in place too, but the economy's, our budgets are trending well. We're looking forward to crafting those. We've got two great budget chairs. Representative Bill Poole for the ETF out of Tuscaloosa does an outstanding job and a very conservative legislator when it comes to crafting our budgets. And then we've got Representative Steve Klaus, who's just south of us in Ozark, our neighbor, who is our chairman for the general fund, and he does an outstanding job as well. So the state budgets, as always, we'll be dealing with that and probably pretty quick because we don't kind of know this COVID situation, what it's going to be looking like. So I think there'll be more of an intense pace to look at our state budgets, I would think. With that being said, let me just say we're going to go in for 2 weeks, work 3 days each week, and then we're going to take a week off to kind of see and reassess where we're at because of the fluid situation with COVID and the protocols and whatnot. But so we'll go in for 2 weeks, and then we'll take a week off and reassess. If we need to adjust anything, we'll adjust that. And so we'll take a look at how things are going. We're going, the lottery and gambling is I think going to be on, the state will be looking at that. I don't know where that's going to stand, but we'll see what happens with that. As you know, the governor had a commission come out with a huge, I think it was 872-page report. So she had that come out. Another big ticket item will be prisons. Any of y'all, I'm sure you've been keeping up with it. The prisons is a huge thing that we've got to tackle. We're under 2 DOJ lawsuits right now. So we've got to deal with that. The governor has kind of put a plan together. Although we haven't seen much of the information about that plan, we do know that there will be 3 new mega prisons for men in Bibb, Elmore, and Escambia County, I think is the proposed locations for those. So we'll see where that leads. But prisons and Medicaid make up about 60% of our general fund budget. So it's a huge deal. We've got to deal with it. And so we'll be taking a look at that. You'll be hearing a lot, I think, for broadband with education and, of course, virtual learning that we've been going through from last spring until obviously right now as well. The need for broadband and being able to get those out to the children and the households is going to be important. So we're still trying to figure that out. We've made some great strides in that, but I think COVID and what it's caused, the pandemic, has illuminated the need for broadband, not just for virtual learning, but also for businesses in where we're going from here. So I think that's really important. And then redistricting this year will take place. I don't know that we'll all tackle that during the regular session, but we'll see what happens. I don't know when those numbers will come in and what it looks like, but we'll be dealing with that. So I think we'll be wise as a legislature to really look at what we can be doing to help small business and to kind of provide some relief and to do some things that can really help small business grow and during this whole time. So with that, I'll be glad to take some questions at the end of the session. I'll hang around and I'll turn it back over to Chase. If you've got any questions, I'll be glad to answer those as well. I hope I gave a brief interview. I didn't want to go too long.
No, that's perfect, Representative. And I appreciate you taking the time, and everybody here appreciate you representing us up in Montgomery. From my past experience, I've seen you up there, and you do a great job for Pike County, and I know the people down here know that. But you touched on a bunch of subjects that touch a lot of us personally, from broadband to small business and protecting the industry. So we certainly appreciate what you're doing up there, and even under the circumstances of COVID, we're grateful that you're willing to go in that old highway department building with narrow hallways and fight for us up there. So no I do appreciate that. I'm gonna pass it back to Dana real quick to introduce David Cole, but I did want to tell a quick story about David. When I first started up at the State House, I was representing county governments, and David was working for the Farmers Federation. And I almost immediately stole his method because I saw there's nobody that runs up and down those halls faster than David Cole. And when you say count votes, he counts every single vote. It is impressive. I think he still runs a 4.440, and I know BCA's dang lucky to have him, and he's doing a great job up there. And I sure am glad he could be with us this morning. Dana, you wanna give them a more formal introduction than I just did?
Sure. Thank you, Representative Allen. We appreciate your time and all that you do. You represent us so well, and we are very grateful for you. At this time, I'm going to welcome David Cole. As I mentioned, he's the BCA Senior Vice President of Governmental Affairs, and we also appreciate all that you do, David. And thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. It is my pleasure. I see where my pastor just joined the call, so I'm going to have to stay on the straight and narrow this morning. So I may not go into too much detail about the lottery and gaming bill, okay? No, but I really do appreciate Chase and Dana. Y'all do such a great job, and it's a pleasure to, work for y'all, because that's what, as the state chamber, we truly are a grassroots organization, and the CCAA partnership with BCA has really been, it's really been a pleasure to meet the various chamber executives and the chamber members throughout the state these past 2 years. February 28th will be 2 years I've been at BCA, when it's just flown by, and have had the opportunity to meet some really wonderful people. Also, Representative Allen does a tremendous job, and he's a pleasure to work with in Montgomery. And, to his point earlier, here at BCA, we have a political arm, and our goal on that front is to make sure that we are surfacing quality, business-friendly candidates to run for the legislature. And the state House and Senate is really where we focus a tremendous amount of our efforts on. We also get involved in constitutional races, which are your statewide constitutional officers, from the governor down to state auditor. Also, we're very involved in the judicial races as well, but the legislature is extremely important in our state as it relates to setting policy. So Representative Allen, thank you so much for those comments today. And hey, he covered a lot of ground, and I will tell you, but really quick, before we get into a couple more issues, I think Chase touched on it earlier, but your involvement is critical. You are the people that, you are why we do what we do, so that you can be as successful as possible in your business and in your daily lives. So that is our goal. We want to make this a business-friendly state. We want to be able to recruit industry. We want to be able to retain industry and retain our kids. I don't want my kids moving to Nashville or Atlanta or Austin. I want them to stay right here in Alabama, or in Troy, preferably, because I live in Troy as well. And we love it there. So we want to make sure that we're doing everything to create that environment. I will say, so here at BCA, we have a very rigorous policy process. And what I mean by that is, when we set our policy for this upcoming legislative session, of which it was approved on December 4th of last year, we held 23 internal policy advisory committee meetings that we have here at BCA, and those policy committees are everywhere from tax and fiscal policy to environment and energy, judicial and legal reform, et cetera. And we had approximately 24 meetings. But by having a rigorous policy process in place, we're able to go to the State House with one voice for the business community. We have several chambers throughout the state that help make up those various different committees. And so if any of you are not members of BCA and want to join, we would love to have you and incorporate you in the appropriate policy committee, so that you can have a voice as it pertains to those issues that affect you the most. But once we approve that policy, that is our playbook for the upcoming session. And when we're lobbying Representative Allen or the Speaker or whomever, we're taking our goal is to take one unified voice from the business community to the State House. And not only does that provide a service for our members, but it also provides a service for legislators too, because they know that we can be a trusted resource, and we're coming with a a unified voice. So hopefully it makes their job a little bit easier as well. But at the end of the day, from a business community perspective, that's what we want to be for Representative Allen. We want to be a trusted resource so that as he's flipping through legislation and it's a bill that deals with the environment, you know, could that positively or negatively affect the business community? We want him to feel comfortable in coming to us if we hadn't already knocked on his door before then, and coming to us and saying, hey, David, how's this going to impact your members, you know? And so having a quality reputation and being that trusted resource really goes a long way in the legislature. And so we've got that done. I will tell you, I know we're ticking down a little bit on time, but a couple things I want to mention really quick. Representative Allen mentioned the liability bill that would provide liability protection for businesses from those who claim they contracted COVID while on that place of business as an employee or as a customer. When the first set of shutdowns occurred, we knew at that point in time we were going to have to do something to make sure that when those businesses opened back up, they would not be afraid of opening back up because of potential frivolous litigation that could come against them if someone were to make those claims. So what we did, we got with the healthcare community, us, the business community, the education community, the trial community, and crafted an executive order for the governor to consider. And we can't thank her enough, but she issued the first executive order in the country that consisted of business, healthcare, and education protection measures. So right now, businesses are protected via the executive order. Now, the problem with that is once the state of emergency dissolves, so does the executive order. And to Representative Allen's point, that's why we've got to have a bill on the books. We got to have a law on the books that gives those businesses the protection they need as they're trying to claw their way back out of this situation. Now, because the last thing they need is a frivolous lawsuit filed against them, and even if they win, they're still out potentially tens of thousands of dollars, and that's the last position that, you know, that posture that they need to be in. Now, I will say this: it is not blanket immunity. Those businesses have to show that they are doing their due diligence to provide protection measures, operating under CDC guidelines for their employees and their customers. Now, if there's a, you know, whomever out, if they're not providing, you know, sanitation stations, making sure their employees and customers remain 6 feet apart, have the stickers on the floors, y'all seen all that, then they could be held liable from someone who claims they contracted COVID while on their place of business. Budget hearings have been going on this week. To Representative Allen's point, so Alabama is one of only 2 states that has 2 budgets. He described those very well. When you look at states throughout the Southeast, especially those states that are contiguous to us, we are in really good shape. One thing that the legislature had the foresight to do a couple of years ago, Chase worked on this issue, we worked on this issue, was moving a percentage of the internet sales tax to the general fund. And y'all, that's critical. That's our, like Representative Allen said, that's our law enforcement, that's Medicaid, that's prisons. But historically, the general fund has not, it's made up primarily of flat taxes, you know, property tax, for example. But by moving a growth tax revenue component to the general fund, it's helped it to become a much more stable, which I know you're asking, how does that impact me? Well, it creates, it lessens the opportunity for the legislature to want to go out and raise your taxes to make that ground up in the general fund. So if we have a flush general fund, it eliminates the potential for higher taxes. So the better off we can be in the general fund, the safer we are as individuals from the potential for higher taxes. So that's certainly a good thing. The reauthorization of economic development incentives, can't stress enough how important that is. And Representative, I'll send you a copy of that bill. But we use those as tools, and Chase and Dana, we use those as tools to recruit industry to our region. It is the economic development recruitment industry or sector is extremely competitive, extremely competitive. And Troy, I'm just thrilled every time I drive down 231 and you see Kimber and you see the big Hobby Lobby and the strip malls that are coming in. It's fantastic. Rex Lumber just north of town. I mean, it's exciting to be a part of that community. And I know Chase and Dana are continuing to do an exceptional job in making sure we recruit and retain those industries and those jobs. But so just to put it in perspective, so the Growing Alabama and the Jobs Act, right now going into the end of last year, we were afraid because they expired in December, and we're thankful for the governor in using her executive power to extend those 2 credits. Because if not, the situation that we were in at that time, we had 29 projects on the bubble. So 29 potential businesses that were going to move to Alabama, totaling $3.5 billion worth of investment and 19,317 direct jobs. So all that was sort of, depending on whether or not those incentives were going to expire or not. If they would have expired, it would have put all those potential projects in jeopardy. So that's just an example of how important those incentives are and what they mean when we're talking about recruiting industry, to the state. State income tax on CARES Act dollars, huge no-no, especially if you're in my world or Representative Allen's world. But there are also some additional things that are going to be in that legislation that's going to help businesses that are domiciled here in our state. And believe it or not, it's actually going to be a net increase to the education budget. So it's going to help businesses. It's going to, from the standpoint of not charging state income tax on CARES Act dollars, but also from those that are domiciled in Alabama, it's going to give them a little bit of a federal tax break. And it's also going to be a net increase to the state education budget. So it's an exceptional piece of legislation. Representative Danny Garrett from Trussville, great guy, good friend of ours, is going to be sponsoring that. And another gentleman that's going to sponsor the economic development incentives, we'll have Bill Poole in the House and Senator Greg Reed in the Senate from Jasper. So we're looking forward to that as well. One other thing that I'll mention, Chase, do we have plenty of time? I don't want to take up too much time. I know y'all probably got some questions, but one thing that's been a hot topic the last few sessions is medical marijuana. So the sponsor of that, Senator Tim Melson from up in Florence, great guy, great friend of the organization's, businessman, farmer, former retired anesthesiologist, but we are not opposed to people using for medicinal purposes. Then that's medicinal marijuana. So this is not smoking or anything like that. This is medicinal. But our challenge was we had to make sure that if something were to pass, that the business community and workers' comp community was going to be protected. And so we worked diligently in making sure that we incorporated the existing workers' comp code section into this legislation. And also from a business perspective, and what I mean business is protected, if you or your business elects to have a no tolerance policy, you should be able to do that, whether it's medical, whether it's recreation, whatever, you should be able to do that. And so we were fortunate and able to get that language in the bill last session in Senate committee. So it was introduced in the Senate, it passed committee, passed the Senate, and then ultimately died in the House from COVID. Now, there's a lot of legislators that have a little bit of uneasiness with it under the situation that we're going to be in this session. I think it had an uphill battle last session. I think under the circumstances that we have this session, just from a logistical standpoint, I think it's going to be tough as well. I know there was a lot of like I say, it passed the Senate. A lot of House members had some issues with it. And so we'll see how that shakes out, but But number one, we're going to make sure if anything passes, businesses are going to be protected or we're going to be opposed to it. So going back to logistics, I don't, any legislation that's extremely controversial is, or just controversial for that matter, I think is really going to have its challenges. That's why we worked extremely hard on the liability bill, economic development incentives, and state income tax on CARES Act dollars to work with other groups to make sure that we had agreed upon legislation that is going to provide a tremendous benefit to the business community. That's what we've been doing the last 6 months. I know it doesn't seem like much, but I'm sitting here looking at the economic development incentives bill, and it's 30 pages long, and this other one's 98 pages long. And it can get pretty dicey and come into an agreed piece of legislation, but we're there. And as Representative Allen mentioned, the first 2 weeks, we're going to hopefully roll with those bills and get those done on the governor's desk and signed. You may not be aware, but from a procedural standpoint, it takes a minimum of 5 days to pass a bill. And so we're going to have 6 days that first 2 weeks. And so hopefully we can get these up and out in those first 2 weeks, and hopefully do it in without anyone contracting this terrible pandemic. But then we'll evaluate and go from there. Obviously, the budgets have to be addressed from a constitutional perspective. The legislature is constitutionally required to pass the budget, so they definitely got to come back and do that. And I think there'll be some other good, hopefully good business-friendly pieces of legislation that'll come through as well. We've got a couple more that we're working on. We've got a workers' classification bill. Should not be an issue. But right now what we've got is you've got a set of federal guidelines, and then our State Department of Labor has a set of state guidelines, and we need to update the state guidelines. The State Department of Labor and Fitzgerald Washington, they're doing an excellent job. But when businesses go online to look at the federal guidelines and compare them to the state guidelines, they don't match up, so it's creating confusion. And so we're just going to make a technical change. Labor's good with it. I don't anticipate any opposition, but we'll see. But that is one of our priorities. So we'll be working hard to move that through. Another bill we're working on is a bill relating to call centers. A couple of years ago, there was a bill that passed that states if you own a call center, and so there's small businesses that have call centers, large businesses, small businesses that have their own call centers. If you own a call center and you move your call center out of the state, you have to give the state 120 days notice or face civil penalties and fines of up to $10,000 per day. That is ridiculous. So the way that bill was introduced versus the way it passed was two different things. The way it was introduced was if you receive any type of state benefit, so like a tax credit or a grant from the state, you have to give them notice. We're fine with that. That's fine. If you're, you should let them know if you're going to pack up and move to another state. If you move to Georgia, you shouldn't still be receiving tax credits from Alabama, right? So, but from our perspective, if they do that to call centers, then what are they going to do to other businesses? So it just sets a bad precedent. And so we're going to work hard to ratchet that back to its original intent. If you're a business and you're not receiving any handouts from the government, you ought to be able to go and do what you want to do wherever you want to go and do it. But not only, and what does that look like from the standpoint of recruiting a call center to the state? Well, if they know we've got that law on the books, they're not coming because they know they're not going to be able to leave if they get here. So it traps them. So there's some other things we're working on like that. There are several, we have several line items within the budget, education budget, general fund budget that we work on. ADEM, we work to make sure that they are adequately funded, and I stress the word adequately. And there's a fine line for that. But if they're not adequately funded, then they'll go up on permit fees for businesses, and that's what we don't want. But we don't want them to be We don't want them to be funded to the extent where they're over regulating businesses either. And so there's sort of a fine line there, but we've got to make sure they're adequately funded. And Director LaFleur and the 7 commissioners there, we work really close with them and have a good relationship. And so, and we work on behalf of several of our members. Anytime they have an issue with ADEM, we've got those relationships in place so that we can adequately address their concerns. So if any of you on the call, if there's ever anything we can do with you from a ADEM perspective or EPA perspective, we've got relationships there too. Please give us a call and let us know. Representative Allen touched on redistricting. Y'all, that's huge. Those numbers shouldn't be coming. We shouldn't be getting those in until June or July. So I think you could expect a special session, maybe late summer, early fall. So we'll be, you gotta watch your flanks, and I know Representative Allen will be watching closely for his House district and those lines. You got 105 members in the House, and you move one line, you got to move 104 others. So it's a precarious process and a tough process to go through. Real quick, so we're working right now, y'all, on scheduling conference calls throughout the session and inviting all 102 chambers to those calls. So we would encourage y'all to, please sign up. We'll be giving you updates throughout the session. And another thing that I would encourage y'all, if y'all are watching the news and they're doing a story on today's happenings at the State House or something, even though it's not anything that pertains particularly to your business or really to the BCA, but if you want some more information on any of that, give us a call. We may not be involved directly, but we're probably involved indirectly in some form or fashion. So give us a call anytime if you have questions. I really stress that about being involved. That's critical. Tuesday morning, the first day of the session, February 2nd at 9 o'clock, we're going to have Governor Kay Ivey as our guest. And she's going to give hopefully just an advertisement of what her State of the State address will be later that evening. But we're fortunate to have her come on. You'll be receiving that information. We're going to send that out in our newsletter tomorrow. So all the Zoom link and information will be on that. We typically have something every Tuesday morning, and so we would love for y'all to tune in. We're going to have Lieutenant Governor Ainsworth the following Tuesday on February the 9th. And so certainly looking forward to both of them. We really good relationships with them. They're great. They work really hard for you and for our state and are doing a great job. And also one more thing, we send out so while we're in session, every Friday, we'll send out a capital briefing. And so that'll be a comprehensive list of our priority bills and where they are in the process, and it'll give you a description of each one of those. And then also what we call bills of interest. And so, during a legislative session, there can be anywhere from 12 to 1,600 bills introduced. We put our eyes on every one of them. We've got a team that meticulously goes through those so that we know our efforts at the State House, that we're doing all we can to not only protect but enhance the opportunities for the business community. Chase, I've talked too long, man. That's glad to take questions. We're here for y'all. We work for y'all. Don't hesitate to reach out to Chase and Dana. They can get in touch with me, or I live on Pam Street, right off Spradley. Stop by if you got a concern. Glad to help you any way we can.
Thanks, David.
We have learned a lot of valuable information this morning. Our business community here in Pike County has proven resilient and strong, especially during this difficult time during the pandemic. I want to ensure all of our chamber members that your economic development team and your chamber team are working together as a united front to continue that our businesses are resilient. Before we close, I would like to thank Representative Allen for his time this morning and David Cole for yours as well. I'd also like to thank Chase Cobb for his work that he has been doing here and for helping us put this together this morning. This preview is the first of many collaborations together for your economic development and your chamber teams, and we look forward to many more great things to come. Thank you for everyone for joining us this morning.
Thanks, everyone.